I'm Christine Restivo, 28 years old, and this is a story of how I almost married the wrong man and how he walked out 3 weeks before our wedding to explore his feelings for someone else. Back then, I really thought I had my life mapped out. I'd been with Ethan for 5 years. We met in college in a psychology elective. I was the quiet one who always sat near the front scribbling notes like my life depended on it. Ethan, though, he was the magnetic type. The guy who could crack a joke in class and have everyone, even the professor, laughing. We couldn't have been more different. But somehow that difference pulled us together. He used to tell me, "Izzy, you're my anchor. You make me feel steady." And I believed him. Believed us. Life tested us early on. When Ethan's dad fell sick 2 years into our relationship, I took time off work to help him manage hospital visits. When money got tight, I handled the bills until he got back on his feet. I even turned down a promising job out of state because he wanted to stay close to his family to build something together here. I didn't think twice about it because when you love someone, sacrifice doesn't feel like loss. It feels like commitment. Fast forward. Last year, Ethan proposed during a weekend hike at sunrise. No flashy spectacle, just us. A quiet trail, his hand shaking as he held out the ring. I cried, of course, said yes, instantly. We started planning the wedding, an outdoor ceremony at a beautiful venue. 100 guests, everything mostly paid out of my savings since Ethan's career in sales was still stabilizing. I put down deposits, chased vendors, even helped him choose my dress, laughing as he swore he wouldn't peek. For a while it felt perfect, but looking back, the cracks had already started to show. 6 months before the wedding, Ethan grew distant. He stayed late at work more often. When he talked about his coworkers, one name slipped in over and over: Chloe. She was on his sales team. Charismatic, spontaneous, always doing crazy things like bungee jumping or last minute road trips. At first, I brushed it off. Ethan had female friends before, and I wasn't insecure. Trust, after all, was the bedrock of our relationship. But then his social media told a different story. Pictures from team nights out where Chloe was always by his side. His laugh too wide, her arms slung a little too close. He'd come home buzzing with stories. Chloe convinced the team to try karaoke at midnight, or Chloe says I should loosen up, try surfing sometime. And then the comparison: Izzy, we should do something adventurous like Chloe does. It stung, but I told myself it was wedding stress. We were both stretched thin. Then came that night 3 weeks before the wedding. I remember it in painful detail. I'd cooked his favorite creamy pasta with garlic bread, candles lit, soft music in the background. I thought it would be a calm, intimate evening. Instead, Ethan sat there picking at his food, scrolling on his phone, like the dinner was just an inconvenience. I asked gently, "Is everything okay?" He set his fork down and his expression unreadable. Then in a voice too steady, like he'd rehearsed it, he said, Izzy, we need to talk. I think we should postpone the wedding." I froze my fork halfway to my mouth. Ah, postpone? What are you talking about? He exhaled, leaning back. Arms crossed, eyes cold. "I've been feeling drawn to someone else. Chloe, nothing physical yet, but the feelings are strong. I need space to explore them. It wouldn't be fair to you or me to rush into marriage without knowing for sure." The words hit like a physical blow. 5 years of loyalty, sacrifice, building a future together. Reduced to a casual confession spoken as if he were rescheduling a dentist appointment, I whispered, "So you're saying I'm not enough?" He tilted his head, almost pitying. "Not boring, Izzy. Just safe, predictable. Chloe makes me feel alive in ways you don't. With you, everything's comfortable, and I can't risk wondering what if after marriage." I felt the room tilt around me. Memories rushed back. Me covering his rent when he lost his job. Me holding him when his father passed. Me shelving my own dreams so he could chase his. And now I was the consolation prize he needed to escape from. I waited for anger to rise, for tears to break, but instead something inside me went cold. I said quietly, "If that's what you need, Ethan, then go." His eyes flickered with surprise. "That's it. You're not going to fight me." I stood up, collected the plates, and carried them to the sink. Why would I fight for someone who's already left me? Inside, my heart was shattering, but on the surface I stayed calm, almost mechanical. That night Ethan packed a bag and left. No grand goodbye, No apology, just silence and the faint sound of the door clicking shut behind him. I stayed there staring at the engagement ring glinting under the kitchen light. Everything I'd planned, every dream we'd built, it all collapsed in a single evening, and I had no idea just how much lower things would go. The next morning I woke to silence. His side of the bed was cold untouched, and for a moment I thought maybe it was all a nightmare. But then I saw the closet half-empty hangers swinging like little reminders. Reality hit hard. I spent that day canceling everything. Venue, florist, caterer all called in one relentless sequence. Some deposits were gone for good, and each non-refundable stung like another cut. When I emailed our guests, I kept it short. The wedding is off. Ethan and I have parted ways. No explanations, just the truth in the plainest form. Of course, silence didn't stop the fallout. Ethan's mother rang me within hours. Her voice cracked with anger. Izzy, after 5 years, this is how you quit. You don't even try. His sister followed with a text. Cold. That's what you've always been. No wonder he needed more. I stared at the words numb. Not one of them asked about my side of the story. Not one paused to think that maybe I wasn't the villain here. I moved into a tiny apartment across town that weekend. 1 bedroom, creaky floors, the kind of place that smelled faintly of old wood and loneliness. I left my key to our shared home on the counter without a note. No confrontation, no fight, just gone. Nights became the hardest part. I'd lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how you can go from my anchor to not enough in such a short time. I replayed his words, endlessly safe, predictable, boring. They burrowed under my skin until I started believing them. Was I really that dull? Was my love just stability dressed as mediocrity? I started therapy. At first, all I did was sit in silence while the counselor asked gentle questions, but even silence had weight. I realized I'd built so much of my identity around Ethan's needs that without him, I felt hollow, like I'd lost myself alongside him. To cope, I threw myself into work. I was a project manager at a tech firm, long hours, endless meetings. The distraction was brutal, but necessary. My coworkers probably thought I was ambitious. In truth, I was just trying not to drown, but whispers found their way to me. Mutual friends mentioned Ethan and Chloe inseparable now. Weekend getaways, selfies on cliffs, spontaneous road trips, their feeds filled with captions like, "Living life fearlessly and found my soulmate." Each post felt like salt on an open wound. I scrolled past quickly, pretending I didn't care. But at night, I'd remember the way he once looked at me, the words he used to whisper, "You're my home." And I'd wonder, was I ever truly I'd say. Then came the cruel twist. At brunch one Sunday, a friend leaned across the table, hesitating before saying, I heard Ethan and Chloe got married. Quick courthouse thing. 6 months after you two split." The words sank like stones in my chest. Married already. I managed a weak smile, stabbing my fork into my eggs like it didn't matter, but inside I broke all over again. Not only had he left me 3 weeks before our wedding, but he'd sprinted into another, as if what we had meant nothing. Back in my apartment that night, I sat on the floor with a glass of wine and stared at the engagement ring, still sitting in its velvet box. I hadn't been able to sell it, or even tuck it away properly. It just lived there on the coffee table, mocking me. I whispered to the empty room. Was I just a placeholder? Did I waste 5 years being his practice run? My phone buzzed then, a notification from social media. Chloe had posted again. This time the caption read, "Here's to new beginnings with my forever." The photos showed Ethan grinning, wide arm wrapped around her waist like she was his prize. I slammed the phone face down, my heart thudding in my ears. For the first time, anger rose above the grief. If he thought he'd traded up, if he thought I'd stay silent forever, he was wrong. I didn't know it yet, but the cracks in their perfect little world were already forming, and when they shattered, I'd be watching. Time passed, but not easily. Each morning I dragged myself into the office with coffee strong enough to mask the exhaustion. At night I journaled because therapy had taught me to put feelings somewhere safe. Today I survived. I'd scribble. Some days that was the only victory worth noting. But the universe has a strange sense of timing. It started with whispers. A colleague from Ethan's company bumped into me at the grocery store. After some awkward small talk, she leaned in, her voice dropping. "I shouldn't say this, but Ethan and Chloe, They're not exactly the fairy tale couple people think. I forced a polite smile, but inside, curiosity pricked sharp. Later, another mutual friend filled in the details. Ethan pressured Chloe to quit her job and help with his big startup idea. He drained her savings chasing one scheme after another. Rumors of him flirting at bars, even with Chloe's friends, spread like wildfire. My hands trembled as I set my glass down, the irony too bitter to ignore. He had once mocked me for being predictable safe. Now his so-called adventure was just recklessness dressed up as freedom. The cracks widened quickly. I heard about public arguments, screaming matches at restaurants, him storming out mid-dinner. One friend confessed she'd seen Chloe crying in a parking lot, mascara streaking her face, Ethan's voice booming through the open car door. By the time their 1-year anniversary rolled around, they weren't celebrating. They were divorcing. He cheated openly, carelessly. And when Chloe confronted him, he didn't fight. He just left. When I learned the news, I sat quietly in my little apartment, tea growing cold beside me. My mind replayed that night at our dinner table, his voice steady as he told me, Chloe made him feel alive. Alive. I whispered the word to myself, then laughed bitterly. Alive until he drained her dry. There was no joy in knowing I'd been right. No victory in watching him fall. It was vindication laced with sadness because I had loved him once. And some stubborn, foolish part of me mourned the boy I met in college, the one who promised me forever. Meanwhile, I had changed. Work became more than a distraction. I applied for the promotion I once passed on to support Ethan. When I got it, I stood in my boss's office stunned as she said, "You've earned this, Izzy. Don't let anyone make you smaller again." I started hiking again too, alone at first. Then with small groups, the trails gave me back pieces of myself I hadn't realized I'd lost. The quiet strength, the steady rhythm of my own breath, the reminder that I could stand on my own 2 feet without anyone's anchor. I was healing slowly, and then just as the scars were beginning to fade, he tried to tear them open again. One evening, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it until curiosity got the better of me. "Izzy, it's Ethan. I got a new number. Can we talk? I miss you." I stared at the screen, frozen. The man who called me boring, who traded me in for chaos, who married someone else within months. He missed me. I didn't reply, but the text didn't stop. A few days later, another came, this time from his old work email. "I know I hurt you. Things with Chloe didn't work out. She wasn't who I thought she was. Abusive, manipulative. I left her, got divorced last month. It's been hell. Remember how good we were? I made a huge mistake. Please let's meet for coffee, just to talk." I dropped my phone onto the couch, bile rising in my throat. A mistake. That's what he called dismantling my life. I typed back 2 words, "not interested," and I blocked him. I thought that would be the end of it. But Ethan wasn't done. He found other ways to reach me through old friends, through his family. His best friend left me a voicemail. "He's really sorry, Izzy. He's broken. At least hear him out." Then his sister, the same one who once called me cold, sent a text dripping with venom. "Grow up, Izzy. You owe him a conversation after all those years he carried you emotionally. Don't be selfish." Carried me? I nearly laughed. The revisionist history would have been comical if it weren't so infuriating. I blocked her too. But the hardest part was his mother. One night she called me, her voice weary but sharp. "Family is family. Ethan made a mistake, yes, but he's learned. Don't throw away years of love over pride. Fix this before it's too late." I didn't argue. I just hung up mid-sentence. And yet the calls, the texts, the pleas, they kept coming. A relentless storm pressing against the walls of my carefully rebuilt peace. I thought I was strong enough to ignore them all until one afternoon I stepped out of my office building and saw him waiting by the entrance. His hair was unkempt, his eyes red-med like he hadn't slept. He looked smaller somehow. Shoulders hunched, clothes wrinkled. "Christine," he called softly, desperation lacing every syllable. "Please don't walk away. I need to talk to you." And against my will, my heart skipped a beat, not out of love, but out of dread, because this wasn't over. The city street blurred behind him, cars, honking people weaving past, but all I could see was Ethan, the man who once called me his forever, who then threw me away like I was the safest option on a boring menu, now stood slouched in front of my office building. His eyes carried the wild, desperate shine of someone who'd lost everything. "Please, Izzy," he said, voice cracking. "Just give me 5 minutes." I didn't move closer. I kept the distance between us like a wall. This isn't the place or the time. But he stepped forward anyway, hands raised in surrender like approaching a frightened animal. His words came in a rush. I was wrong. Chloe, she wasn't what I thought. She yelled at me constantly, pushed me, tore me down. She cheated on me, Izzy. She drained me. And when I tried to fix it, she walked out. I lost everything. My savings, my job, contacts, even my apartment. I'm staying at a friend's couch now. But you were always there. You were steady. You were the only real thing I ever had. He reached out as if to take my hand. I stepped back. Ethan, don't you dare rewrite history. You left me. You mocked my stability, and now that you're broken, suddenly it's a virtue. He flinched like I'd slapped him. For a moment he tried softening his voice, dropping to a pleading whisper. We can start over. Postpone was stupid. I see that now. We can still have the wedding, the life we planned. You'll see. I'll be better this time. I stared at him, the audacity choking me. Did he really believe he could crawl back, brush off the wreckage, and slot me back into his narrative like nothing happened? I shook my head slowly. That life doesn't exist anymore. You burned it. You buried it. And I'm not digging it up. Something shifted then. His desperation curdled into anger. His jaw tightened. His words sharpened like knives. So that's it. After everything I gave you, you're just done. Cold, selfish Christine acting like a saint. You think you're too good for me now. You'll regret this. One day you'll realize no one else will put up with your boring, safe little world. People passing by turned their heads at the venom in his voice. My chest tightened, but I didn't let him see me flinch. Instead, I said calmly, if boring means I don't have to babysit a man who destroys everything he touches, then yes, I'll take boring. I walked past him, heels clicking against the pavement, refusing to look back. But Ethan wasn't finished. Days later, an email landed in my inbox from a strange account. The subject line, one last chance. Against my better judgment, I opened it. His words spilled across the screen. Izzy, I'm sorry, I lost control. I'm scared. Everything's falling apart. My friends have turned their backs. My family thinks I'm worthless and I can't get a job. Please, for what we had, give me one conversation attached to something I kept. The ring. Our ring. I couldn't throw it away. I held on to it because deep down I knew we weren't finished. There it was, a photo of my old engagement ring. The same ring I'd once stared at under the kitchen light, numb and broken. Now it was his proof of devotion. Pathetic. I closed the laptop and deleted the email. Still, he found new ways to press himself into my life. His best friend left another voicemail. You're being cruel, Izzy. He's trying. His sister doubled down with another text. Selfish. You always were. Even his father called me once, his tone rough. He's family. Family deserves second chances. I blocked every number, every email, every attempt, but it wore me down like water carving into stone. I'd built walls around myself, yet Ethan kept pounding on them, desperate to be let back in. One night I dreamed of him, the old Ethan, the boy who once carried my textbooks across campus, who kissed me under the rain, who whispered that I was his home. For a moment waking up, I almost ached for that version of him. But then I remembered that boy was gone. The man outside my office, the man spitting venom when denied, the man clinging to an engagement ring like it was a lifeline. That was the real Ethan. And no matter how loud he begged or how pitiful he looked, I wasn't going back. Because this time I wasn't the one desperate. But I also knew this. He wouldn't stop until he saw it for himself. The day he realized I was truly gone, truly happy, truly beyond his reach, that would be the day he broke completely, and fate was already setting the stage for it. Time has a way of softening edges. By the next year, my life looked nothing like the hollow apartment days. I'd leaned into my promotion, my projects gaining recognition. My boss even trusted me with mentoring new hires, a quiet validation that I was worth more than Ethan ever let me believe. But the real change, I found joy again. It started with hiking groups. At first I joined just to avoid being alone on the trails. But that's where I met Daniel. He was different, calm, but adventurous, thoughtful, without being overbearing. He didn't want me to shrink so he could shine. He wanted us to grow side by side. Conversations with him felt effortless. Laughter returned. Not the nervous kind, but the kind that settles deep in your chest and reminds you you're alive. For the first time in years, I felt seen, not as someone's anchor, not as someone's safe option, but as myself. Life moved forward with quiet happiness. Weekend trips, dinners filled with warmth, not tension. Nights where silence wasn't heavy but comfortable. And with each day, Ethan became a fading shadow. Until the wedding. A mutual friend, Tom, was getting married, ironically at the same venue Ethan and I had once booked. When the invitation came, I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to face the ghosts, but another part knew I was ready. Daniel came as my plus one, and walking into that garden with his hand in mine, I realized something. I wasn't haunted anymore. I was free. Then I saw him across the lawn, hunched in a suit that hung a little loose on his frame. Hair thinner, smile forced. Ethan alone, our eyes met, his widened. Instantly, and I knew he'd been waiting for this. Sure enough, as soon as the ceremony ended, he made his way toward me, cutting through the crowd like a moth to flame. Christine, he whispered, pulling me aside near the bar, eyes glistening. Seeing you here, it kills me. We could have had this. We should have had this. Chloe's gone for good. She divorced me, left me with nothing. No job, no home, no friends. I lost everything. And now I realize you were my everything. Please, Izzy, take me back. I'll change. I swear. For a moment the noise of the reception dulled. It was just him and me, years of pain condensed into his shaking voice. But there was no apology, not for humiliating me, not for abandoning me, not for weaponizing his family and friends against me. Every word was about his loss, his need, his desperation. I glanced across the room. Daniel stood chatting with Tom's groomsmen, his laugh easy, his posture relaxed. A man who wanted me not for comfort, not as a fallback, but as a choice. I turned back to Ethan. No, I said softly, firmly. That chapter is closed. His face palled. You can't mean that. I do. I've moved on. I have someone now who sees me for who I am, not for what I can give him. You wanted growth, Ethan. I found mine without you. So I gestured toward Daniel. Meet him later if you want. But us. We're finished forever. Ethan's eyes filled with something between rage and despair. How can you be so indifferent? After 5 years easy, I cut in. My voice didn't shake. You taught me to prioritize myself. That was your only gift. I stepped away, leaving him there, mouth open, hands trembling as I slipped back to Daniel's side. He smiled as I approached, lacing his fingers through mine. Together we melted back into the celebration. Music, laughter, joy, and Ethan. He stood alone, his failure on full display. Guests whispered, eyes darting. He didn't follow me. He couldn't. Later, as Daniel and I danced under the string lights, I caught a glimpse of Ethan slipping out, the back shoulders hunched, swallowed by the dark. That was the last time I ever saw him. Looking back now, I realized revenge wasn't blocking his calls or watching him unravel. Revenge was living well. Peace wasn't silence born of grief. It was silence born of choice. So to anyone listening who's been betrayed the way I was, trust the process. Walk away with dignity. Let karma handle the rest.